a quick presentation to summarize what we've done already for our topic of producers. So I'll just go over section 1 and then I'll give you another presentation for section 2. So this is working up to our book in page 95. So remember the difference between a consumer and a producer. So a consumer, that's the topic we did previously. That's the person who purchases goods and services for personal use. And a producer, which is what we are doing now, is the individual or a company or a firm that supplies the good or service. And our definition of supply that we've learnt is the quantity of a good or service that a producer is willing and able to sell at a certain range of prices. So remember our key words there: quantity supplied and willing and able. So just to summarize what we've gone over, these are key concepts that you'll need to know, usually for question 1 in the practice exam. It will be about the law of supply, supply schedule, supply curve. So as you can see, the supply schedule is a table showing the amount of a good or service that a producer is willing to supply at each price. Here we have an example for CDs where we've got price in the left-hand column and the quantity supplied in the right-hand column. So we can then take that data, and you'll need to be able to do this, and create a supply curve. And just a reminder that your supply curve will always be upward sloping like this, because it shows us that when the price increases, so does the quantity supplied along the y-axis, along the x-axis. So definitely double check that your curve is around the right way, not the demand curve way, which will go in the opposite way. So just a key point there to remember. So before moving on, please make sure that you can define supply, that you can define what a supply schedule is, and that you can draw and define a supply curve and what it shows. So then, as we know, once we do this and we take that data and draw it into a graph, this shows us the law of supply. And the law of supply states that as the price of a good or service increases or decreases, so does the quantity supplied. So in this example, the price has gone down, so the quantity supplied is also going to go down. And it would also be the opposite way around. If the price increased, so would the quantity supplied increased. So for example, just to remember, price is what the market is prepared to pay for a product. So what the producer can receive for the product that they create. So let's say we were a producer who supplies pies. So we had a bakery and we had a pie shop. Would you supply more pies if the price increased? And why would you supply less pies if the price decreased? So if you think you had a little pie shop, are you going to supply more pies if the consumers paid, say, $5 compared to $3? And then let's say the price went down to $2, are you going to supply more or less? So any price change, this is the same for the consumer topic, any price change will cause a movement along the curve. Okay, so not a shift of the curve, that's what we're going to do next. This is a movement along the curve. And it looks like this. So we have our P1. So we have, oh, can you see my hand? No. So you can see that we move from P1 to P2. And we do our dotted lines across. Where it hits the supply curve, we go down. We then have our quantity supplied 1, quantity supplied 2. So this is showing us an increase in price in this example. And as we can see, the quantity supplied has also increased. So a change and the price of a good or service results in a change in the quantity supplied. So just remember that we use QS, so quantity supplied, not just supply. So if we were looking at this example, we have our supply schedule. If we could put those numbers in the graph here, we would see at $10, this producer would supply 200 CDs, and if the price was $15, he would increase his supply to 600 CDs. And just to reiterate our equation that we learned about revenue minus costs equals profit. So your input cost, that's the cost that the producer has to pay to create his product. So the price is the amount that the producer receives, so from the consumer, from the customer, and then that's going to equal the profit margin. So I think in class we wrote it as revenue minus costs equals profit. So this is the same thing here. So if we were to break down the whole topic of supply, so at the top there you see that it has the definition of supply. We then break it down into internal factors that affect supply and then external factors. So price is just one small category that we've learned about, okay? And that's going to create a price change on your graph. The next section we're going to move into is non-price factors, which are both of those other arms of the graph, and they can be internal and external. So stay tuned for the next video and I'll talk about the different non-price factors, both internal and external. Any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'll see you in the next video. Just make sure as a summary that for section 1 you can do all of these things. So make sure your definitions are accurate and you're always expanding on them in your answers, that you know how to calculate the different figures in a supply schedule, you know the definition of the law of supply and why and how that is shown on a graph. Ensure that your graph is correct. Remember, we always need a title, axes, lines, and labels. Definitely your supply curve should always have the S on it. Your P1, your P2, your title, y-axis, x-axis, and then Q1, Q2. And then how to show a change in price and whether that's an increase or a decrease. This is what you'll need to know for question 1. And any questions, please email or give me a call on Teams and we'll sort it out. Thank you.